Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
The Battle of Philippi, formerly part of the Western Virginia campaign, formed as part of the Western Virginia campaign, and was fought in and around Philippi, Virginia, which is now West Virginia, on June 3rd of 1861. Only one day battle here. Union victory, our first, well, I guess since Sumter, our first actual victory from either side.
right.
A Union victory was the first organized land action of the war.
Wow.
So this is the first land battle, though generally viewed as a skirmish rather than a battle. I mean, take it or leave it.
Right.
However,
How ill.
the Northern press celebrated it as an epic triumph. Of course they did. And this encouraged Congress to call for the drive on Richmond that ended with the Union defeat at Bull Run in July, which
We'll see
we're
that.
coming up really fast.
They got cocky. Oh, this ain't that hard.
Mhm. As the first of a series of victories that pushed Confederate forces out of Northwest Virginia, it strengthened the Union government in exile that would soon create the new state of West Virginia. So this is the start of West Virginia, number one, and the first land battle of the Civil War. So we're getting into it now. As the largely untrained Confederates had fled the battlefield with barely any resistance, the Union jokingly referred to the engagement as the Philippi races.
Right. Philippi races.
So those guys were running so fast that they were having a race out of there.
Right, I mean,
Uh-oh.
the Union picked a weak little spot here to gain some
Hey, man,
press.
you need to get morale and momentum as any place you can take it. Right now, they needed, after what was going on these last couple weeks, they
Right.
needed all the momentum they could hit.
Robert E. Lee's thinking, he's like,
That's fine.
come on, you're gonna try to come through the back. Well, I ain't got two guys guarding that. Why don't you come up through Southern, where I got 50 guys in cannon and horses?
It's fine. It's fine.
After the commencement of hostilities at Fort Sumter in April, Major General George B. McClellan returned to the Army, and on the 13th of May assumed command of the Department of Ohio, headquartered in Cincinnati. McClellan planned an offensive, which is now the state of West Virginia. That's what we just said, which he hoped would lead to the campaign against the Confederate to Richmond. That's what he thought. He was like, "This is if we want to get to Richmond.
This is our path to Richmond, right
This
here.
is our path to Richmond."
Right.
His immediate objectives were to occupy the territory to protect the largely pro-Union populace in the counties along the Ohio River, yes,
Right.
and to keep open the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad.
A critical supply line for the Union. Can't relinquish that.
You ain't getting.
On May 26th, a few days before the battle, McClellan, in response to the burning of bridges on the Baltimore and Ohio near the town of Farmington, ordered Colonel Benjamin Franklin Kelly, 1st West Virginia Infantry of the Union.
Right.
So they already had a West Virginia Infantry with his regiment and Company A of the 2nd West Virginia Infantry to advance from Wheeling to the area and safeguard the important bridge over the Monongahela River at Fairmount at a distance about 70 miles southeast of Wheeling. Jeez, holy southwest. Kelly's men were supported by the 16th Ohio Infantry under Colonel James Irvine. After securing Fairmount, the 1st West Virginia advanced again and seized the important railroad junction of Grafton.
They got it.
About 15 miles southeast of Fairmount on May 30th. So now finally we see the Union coming in, advancing, and imposing their will on shit going on here.
Meanwhile, though, the 14th Ohio Infantry Regiment under Colonel James Steedman was ordered to occupy Parkersburg and then to proceed to Grafton after that, about 90 miles to the east. By the 28th of May, McClellan had ordered a total of about 3,000 troops into Western Virginia and placed them under the overall command of Brigade General Thomas A. Morris, commander of the Indiana Volunteers. So he liked
not
Thomas,
the Tennessee Volunteers, the Indiana Volunteers.
Yeah, Indiana. He's like, how about that guy from Indiana? What's his name? Morris. Yeah,
3,000 troops, though. That's the biggest single troop movement that we've seen so far.
That's a lot.
On May 4th, Confederate Colonel George A. Porterfield had been assigned command of the state forces in northwestern Virginia and was ordered to Grafton to take charge of enlistments in the area. As the Union columns advanced, Porterfield's poorly armed 800 recruits. So we got 3,000 versus 800 right now. His poorly armed 800 recruits retreated to Philippi, about 17 miles south of Grafton. Philippi was the county seat of Barber County, which had voted in favor of Virginia secession.
Right, they got to be there.
Palmetto secession flag had been flying over the courthouse since January of 1861. So even before they officially seceded, this courthouse in Barber County or in Philippi had been flying the secession flag.
They're like, guess what? Nobody comes here except for us. This is who we are.
Either way, a Palmetto secession flag was flying above the courthouse since January
of 1861.
way before the Confederacy was even a thing, because Confederacy didn't officially form until February 7th.
All right.
So, or
These guys
9th.
are out.
And these guys are, well, because South Carolina already
Right.
seceded in
Right.
December.
Yeah.
But Virginia, these guys in Barber County are like, we want to go with you guys.
We're gonna.
Well, they were probably pissed when Virginia was like, nah, I don't think we're going to do anything right now.
But we are. At Philippi, a covered bridge spanned the Tygart Valley River and was an important segment of the vital Beverly Fairmont Turnpike.
Okay.
While Portfield had a command of regimental strength,
Porterfield.
right? Had a command of regimental strength that was composed of independent companies that had not yet been formally organized into regiments.
Oh, so not even
Can't have that.
Yeah.
Most were local recruits from Taylor, Pocahontas, Upshur, Hardy, Pendleton, Harrison, B. Arthur, Barber, Marion, and Valley counties.
So every county in Virginia.
Right.
And
of Augusta, Bath, Rockbridge, and Highland.
the Valley counties of Augusta, Bath,
Right.
Rockbridge, and Highland.
Right.
Right.
Of.
So these are cities in there. Yeah. So inexperienced little 800 guys that know nothing.
Right. Have rusty old rifles.
Mhm. The
Don't take care of
The
shit.
companies were the Letcher Guards, Pocahontas Rescues, Upshur Grays, Franklin Guards, Hardy Blues, Marion Guards, Harrison Rifles, Highland County Highlanders, Barber Grays, Potomac Guards, Bath Grays, Second Rockbridge Dragoons, Churchville Cavalry, and the Barber Light Horse Cavalry.
Nice.
Jeez. These companies were eventually organized into 25th Virginia Infantry, the 31st Virginia Infantry, the 11th Virginia Cavalry, and the 14th Virginia Cavalry. What's the difference?
Who knows how to ride a horse? Okay.
With the Barber Light Horse Cavalry disbanding after the battle.
Colonel Kelly devised a two-prong attack against Confederate forces in Philippi, approved by General Morris on his arrival in Grafton on the 1st of June. The principal advance would be 1,600 men, led by Kelly himself. This is the 1,600 men, though, led by Kelly himself, and would include 6 companies of his own regiment, 9 of the 9th Indiana, no, this is Union, 9 of the 9th Indiana Infantry Regiment under
against the Confederates, right?
Right. So we got 9 of the 9th Amendment 9 of the 9th Indiana Infantry Regiment under Colonel Robert H. Milroy, and 6 of the 16th Ohio Infantry.
All right.
In order to deceive the enemy into thinking the objective was Harper's Ferry, they departed by train to the east.
Oh.
They disembarked in a small village of Thornton and marched south on a back road on the same side of the river as Philippi, intending to arrive at the rear of the town.
Ooh, they're coming up the rear.
Ooh, look at these guys.
Meanwhile, the 7th Indiana under Colonel Ebenezer Dumont were sent to Webster about 3.5 miles south of Grafton.
No.
They would unite with the 6th Indiana under Colonel Thomas T. Crittenden and the 14th Ohio under Colonel Steedman. The column, with a total of 1,400 men under Colonel Dumont, would march directly south from Webster on the turnpike. In this way, the Union force would execute a double envelopment of the outnumbered Confederates. So they're going this way. On June 2nd, the Union column set off to converge on Philippi. After an overnight march in rainy weather, both arrived at Philippi before dawn the following morning.
All right.
Okay, so now we're coming
dawn.
in. What are we going from the north, south, or east, west? Either or. They're coming in from both sides.
Morris had planned a pre-dawn assault to be signaled by a pistol shot. The Green Confederate volunteers had failed to establish picket lines for perimeter security.
Ooh, you got to have that perimeter.
You got to have that
Isn't
picket
that like
line.
the first thing of camp?
It is.
Get your perimeter set.
Choosing instead to escape the cold rain and stay inside their tents.
Oh, pussies.
A Confederate sympathizer, Mrs. Thomas Humphreys, saw the approaching Union troops and sent her young son on horseback to warn the Confederates.
She's like, he's like, the Union are
Union's
coming.
coming.
The Union are coming.
That little the Humphrey boy, I
Humphrey
bet.
boy.
As Mrs. Humphreys watched, she saw Union pickets capture her son and fire her pistol at them.
Oh,
She fired her pistol at him. She missed, but her shots began the attack prematurely.
Oh, because her pistol signaled Morris's pistol that was supposed to be planning the assault. So now everybody went when they weren't ready.
Oh, my.
The Union attackers began firing their artillery, which awakened the Confederates from their slumber. Those who were armed fired a few shots at the advancing bluecoats. Then Southerners broke and began running to the south, some still in their bedclothes. This caused Union journalists to refer to the battle as the races at Philippi. Those guys immediately took off. They were like, I don't want no part of this.
Well, it's still dark.
Rainy, wet, nasty. Dumont's soldiers entered the town from the bridge. Colonel Lander's ride down the steep hillside through heavy underbrush was considered such a feat of horsemanship that Leslie's Weekly, which was a magazine, I guess, gave an illustrated account of it shortly afterward.
Nice.
So, okay, it must have been a steep little hill that knew how to ride a horse on, huh?
Nice.
But Kelly's column had arrived from the north on the wrong road and were unable to block the Confederate retreat. Kelly himself was shot while pursuing some of the retreating Confederates, but Colonel Lander chased down and captured the man who shot him.
Okay.
The Confederates retreated to Huttonsville, about 45 miles to the south. Damn, those motherfuckers. They ran 45 miles. This is we ain't messing
45
around.
miles. Whoa. Dang.
Jeez.
And I bet they made it there in 45 minutes.
I'm sure they did. A mile a minute.
They were running a mile a minute. Wow. Can you imagine? Wow. And it's still like beginning worse. They really don't know what's going on. So there's like, oh man, this is crazy.
Right.
They don't even have uniforms yet. Philippi was the first organized land action in the war.
Organized, yeah. Well, kind of failed at the end without catching all the retreaters, but
right. They had a little battle at the Fairfax County Courthouse a couple days earlier, but that's not counted as there's probably some fatalities and stuff there.
What
are you gonna do?
The Battle of Fairfax Courthouse? Why was that not on the list?
Because it wasn't part of the Civil War. It was
the first land engagement of the American Civil War with fatal casualties. What?
But they don't consider it a
Union scouting party clashed with the local militia in the village of Fairfax.
Yeah,
resulting in the first deaths in action and the first wound in a field grade officer.
Yeah, it was just a militia.
The Union had sent a regular cavalry patrol under Lieutenant Charles H. Thompson to estimate enemy numbers in the area. At Fairfax Courthouse, they surprised a small Confederate rifle company and took some prisoners. Marr rallied the Confederate Captain John Q. Marr rallied his unit, but was killed. Whoa.
Wow.
And command was taken over by a civilian ex-governor of Virginia, William Smith, who forced the Union retreat. The engagement is judged to have been inconclusive. The Union did not gain the intelligence it was seeking and had to delay its drive on Richmond, thus enabling the Confederates to build up their strength at Manassas. Bull Run. Wow. Tompkins was criticized for exceeding his orders, although they had been somewhat imprecise.
Nice.
Why was that not on the list?
Right. 1 killed, 2 wounded, 5 captured. There's that. We just gave it to him.
Okay, well, guys, that wasn't even on any list of battles of the Civil War, so this is why I guess
crazy
could not be counted as such.
Right, and Union victory in this relatively bloodless battle propelled McClellan into the national spotlight. This is the Philippi. Yeah. The Northern press, hungry for battle stories.
You knew they were, dude. They
presented it as an epic triumph, encouraging politicians to demand that a big advance on Richmond. We must march to Richmond. Which became Bull Run.
Or Manassas, whatever side you're on.
Right.
The civilian population of Philippi were the first in Western Virginia to feel the devastation of the war. The town was primarily secessionist in sentiment, and many had fled south with as many of their valuables as they could carry in fear of the federal advance. In July, a month after the battle, it was reported that with the exception of our troop, it is almost deserted, meaning Philippi. Only 3 families have returned. Among them is Mr. Wilson and family, and one of the most influential families in Barber County. Oh no, he's going back. He's Barber County's mine. I'm coming back.
Yeah, come back, and now I go more. I'm taking all.
Right. A correspondent in the Cincinnati Times wrote, "The village bears more than any other I've seen the ruinous effect," because these guys have never seen a war, dude.
Right.
Nothing. The ruinous effect of the war. Many of the houses have been sacked and maliciously damaged.
Burnt down.
Not that half of them are now occupied. The inhabitants haven't fled. It was a rabid secession town, and the women yet leaned strongly that way.
Right.
A record book of soldier violations was found a few months after the battle, containing the following entries. Edward F. Grant enters a complaint against Colonel McCook's 9th Ohio Regiment for breaking into the houses of Haynes and also the Union.
Of course they were.
The Union.
Of course.
But they're actually complaining and keeping track of it. But the record book was left, so nobody heard about it. Right. Breaking into the houses of Haynes and Hobbiter on June 25th at 1 p.m. 2 privates in the guardhouse for stealing glassware and vegetables.
Oh, jeez.
Vegetables.
Well,
4 men.
Go back on the road.
Yes, 4 men in the guardhouse for theft. Discharged. 96 men in the guardhouse for breaking into dwelling in houses.
Of course they were.
I mean, come on. What are you going to do? You guys, what are you going to do? It's war. Of course you're going to ransack the houses.
Happens. Sorry to say, but it happens.
I mean, of course you're going to ransack the houses. You're getting any goods and products you can moving. I mean, you never know how long you're going to be out there.
They say the heinous stuff the United States Army did to the Vietnamese was bad. Nothing compared to what happened in America.
I don't know about that. They didn't
Yeah, they did.
They didn't kill villagers.
Oh yeah. They
if
did.
so, rarely.
And burned the whole damn city down.
Troops in Vietnam were literally murdering wives and kids, dude.
It's true. And it was the same way
No.
in the war. Yeah. Especially
not to the extent of the Vietnam War.
Not to the extent, but it happened. Especially if you resisted. Crazy. Many of the men of the Philippines had left before or just after the battle. Some not returning until after the war and leaving the women to care for families and property.
Look at these pussies, dude. Jeez.
There were 2 significant Confederate casualties. Both were treated with battlefield amputations, believed to be the very first operations of amputations on the old
I would imagine.
On the old battlefield. One was a Virginia Military Institute cadet, Fauntleroy Dangerfield.
Oh, geez.
Rodney's great grandpa.
And it's spelled with an I. Dangerfield is.
Right. The other Confederate was James E. Hanger. He just had a regular name.
Right.
18-year-old from college. Where are you from? College. From college. After recovering and being released, Hanger returned home to Virginia. He made an artificial leg from barrel staves with a hinge at the knee.
So that was the thing back then too, when these guys were
making a little
prosthetic. When these guys were getting their stuff amputated, it was up to them. No, like medical people were advancing the prosthetic. Like these guys, the soldiers themselves were making their own arms and making their own legs, and that's the prosthetic game, dude. They started it.
They had to.
There's
so many people.
Well, they would get like wood or something just stiff where you couldn't move it or anything like that, and then they started doing their own
it's ridiculous
designs
if
of it.
They couldn't get that little lead ball out of your leg. Instead of trying to dig for it, they just cut your leg.
It wasn't worth it.
They just cut your leg off.
It wasn't worth it.
Right. Sorry, buddy. You have to lose a leg.
Although I was reading about amputations and stuff. A lot of times it was the last resort to even amputate. They tried surgery and to get the ball out, but if they couldn't,
got to get it out.
And there was literally piles of limbs
everywhere
outside of the doc's house, dude. His design worked so well that the Virginia State Legislature commissioned him to manufacture the Hanger limb for other wounded soldiers. After the war, Hanger patented his prosthetic device and founded what is now the Hanger Orthopedic Group. This dude made a whole freaking lifetime generation business out of his unfortunate. Was it an arm? As of 2007, Hanger Orthopedic Group is the United States market leader in the manufacture of artificial limbs.
Wow.
Good for him. Following the battle, Colonel Porterfield was replaced in command of Confederate forces in Western Virginia by Brigadier General Robert S. Garnett.
Garnett.
The
short story writer and satirist Ambrose Bierce, 1842, circa 1914, was a Union recruit at the Battle of Philippi. 20 years later, he wrote an autobiographical fragment he called On a Mountain. He says, we gave ourselves this aristocracy. Yeah. We gave ourselves this aristocracy. We gave ourselves this aristocracy of service. No end of military airs. Some of us even to the extreme of keeping our jackets buttoned and our hair combed.
Yep.
We had not been in action. We had shot off. Oh, we had been in action. We had shot off a Confederate leg at Philippi, the very first battle of the war, and had lost as many as a dozen men at Laurel Hill and Carrick's Ford. Whether the enemy had fled in trying, heaven knows why, to keep us away. The quotation marks indicate the wryness with which Bierce and his fellow veterans, who were to undergo far more harrowing fights, must have regarded the designation of the first battle.
Well, good for him. We had in this battle, which was the first land one, right? We had 3,000 men for the Union, 800 for the Confederacy, 4 killed or wounded for the Union, 26 killed or wounded for the Confederacy here. So
that's
our first bloody battle.
It's a significant.
And it's only rated a D on the battles of the.
It wasn't even a battle, dude. They call a lot of them off guard. That's
yeah. They ran them out. They routed them, is
Right.
what this says. Union forces rout a small Confederate detachment in Western Virginia.
I mean, we didn't come prepared. What do you want me to do? Next week it's gonna be better.
What do you want to do?
We're gonna prepare for these guys, and we're refocused. We just weren't focused today. They caught us. They caught us off guard, and we had to run with our tails between our legs. We'll get them next week.